Earth detected the strange signal on a Tuesday morning. It appeared at the edge of the solar system, moving fast toward Mars. At first, the scientists at NASA thought it was a comet or asteroid, but its speed and direction changed too precisely. Colonel Ben Harris stared at the monitor in the Earth Defense Force headquarters. The object was clearly artificial, metallic, and approximately 1 kilometer in length. "Get me visual confirmation," he ordered. Susan Wright, the chief technician, adjusted the deep space telescope. "Coming through now, sir." The image sharpened on screen. The vessel was sleek, with odd angles that seemed to bend light around it. Nothing in Earth's spaceship designs looked remotely similar. "It's not one of ours," Ben said quietly. "Alert the Security Council and prepare the EDF-7 for immediate launch." Within 3 hours, Captain Alex Morgan stood on the bridge of the EDF-7, Earth's most advanced spacecraft. Though publicly described as a research vessel, it carried enough firepower to level a small city. Course plotted to intercept near Jupiter's orbit, reported Lieutenant Grace Powell from the navigation station. "We'll reach it in 43 hours. Alex nodded. "Keep us at yellow alert. No weapons active yet, but shields at maximum." Back on Earth, Dr. Olivia Patel rushed into the United Nations emergency session. As the world's foremost expert in theoretical xenolinguistics, she had spent her career preparing for this moment. "We need to establish communication protocols immediately," she told the assembled leaders. "If they're advanced enough for interstellar travel, they likely have translation technology, or at least mathematical communication systems." The Security Council, led by Director Frank Daniels, authorized her to lead the communication effort from Earth while the EDF-7 approached the alien craft. In space, the alien vessel suddenly accelerated toward Jupiter, then stopped abruptly. It began emitting strange energy patterns that the EDF-7 sensors couldn't identify. "They're scanning the system," said Chief Science Officer Paul Green. "From the energy signatures, they're looking specifically at our defense capabilities." Alex frowned. "That's not a great sign for peaceful first contact." The alien ship detected the approaching EDF-7 and turned toward it. For several tense minutes, both vessels faced each other in the cold emptiness near Jupiter. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," Grace announced. "It's unlike anything I've seen before." "Send it to Earth immediately," Alex ordered, "and prepare our first contact package." On Earth, Dr. Paddle received the transmission and fed it into her specialized translation system. After hours of analysis, patterns emerged. "It's working," she whispered as symbols began to form coherent structures. Her team worked through the night, and by morning, they had decoded enough to understand the basics. The aliens called themselves the Xorians, representatives of something called the Galactic hegemony. They expressed surprise at finding advanced technology in this sector, which their records had marked as primitive development zone. Dr. Patel prepared Earth's response and sent it to the EDF-7 for transmission. When Alex relayed the message, the Xorian ship responded almost immediately. A holographic image appeared on the EDF-7's bridge, a tall, slender being with iridescent skin and 4 arms. "We greet Earth," it said in surprisingly good English, clearly translated by their advanced systems. "I am Scout Commander Vex of the Galactic Hegemony Exploration Corps. Your world was not expected to achieve space travel for another century. We developed faster than expected." Alex replied carefully. "Why have you come to our system?" The alien made a gesture with its upper arms. "We are an advance party. The hegemony expands through this sector, bringing planets into our collective. A delegation follows to discuss terms of your incorporation." "Incorporation?" Alex asked, feeling a chill. "Yes," Vex replied. "All worlds eventually join the hegemony. Resistance is, historically, unsuccessful." As the conversation continued, Lieutenant Carl Johnson quietly analyzed the alien ship's defenses. The Xorian vessel was powerful, but not impossibly so. Earth might have a chance if things went badly. "Tell your leaders to prepare," Vex said finally, Ambassador Krell arrives within 7 rotations of your planet. The future of Earth will be decided then. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Send everything to Earth, Alex ordered. And tell them we might need to prepare for more than just a diplomatic meeting. The United Nations building buzzed with nervous energy as the world's leaders gathered for the arrival of Ambassador Krell. 7 days had passed since the first contact with the Saurians, days filled with frantic preparation and global unification, unlike anything Earth had seen before. Director Frank Daniels stood at the window of his office, watching military vehicles position themselves discreetly around the complex. He turned as Dr. Olivia Patel entered the room. "Are we ready?" he asked. "As ready as we can be," she replied, adjusting her translator device. "The hegemony ships have entered Earth orbit, 3 vessels, including one much larger than the scout we encountered." The sky darkened briefly as the hegemony diplomatic shuttle descended toward the designated landing area. Television crews from every nation broadcast the landing live as the sleek craft touched down. A ramp extended, and 6 Saurians emerged, led by a larger figure in ornate attire. Ambassador Krell stood nearly 8 feet tall, with skin that shifted colors like oil on water. 4 arms moved with precise grace as the ambassador walked, flanked by guards carrying what were clearly weapons. "Remember," Frank whispered to the Earth delegation as they moved to greet the aliens, "we show strength through unity." The meeting began cordially enough in the Grand Assembly Hall. Krell spoke in a melodic language that the translator devices converted to human speech with only a slight delay. "The Galactic hegemony extends greetings to Earth," Krell announced. "For 50,000 years, we have brought order and advancement to thousands of worlds. Today, we offer Earth the privilege of joining our collective." Frank stepped forward. "We appreciate your interest in Earth, Ambassador. We are eager to learn about galactic society and possibly establish trade relations." Krell's skin rippled from blue to purple. "You misunderstand. This is not an invitation to partnership. The hegemony absorbs, it does not partner. Your world will become a protectorate, governed by hegemony law." A murmur ran through the human delegation. "And if we prefer independence?" Frank asked carefully. "Independence is inefficient," Krell replied. "The hegemony requires Earth's resources and strategic position. You will receive protection and limited technology in exchange for your compliance." In a secure room below the assembly hall, Lieutenant Kate Wilson and her team monitored the conversation while simultaneously working to decrypt the communications between the hegemony ships. "I got something," she told her supervisor over the secure line. "They're discussing resource extraction plans, massive mining operations, water harvesting. And," she paused, "harvesting of biological specimens." "Humans?" her supervisor asked. "Yes. They consider us valuable labor units." This information was quickly relayed to Frank during a brief recess in the negotiations. When the talks resumed, his approach had hardened. "Ambassador Krell, we have considered your offer," Frank said firmly. "Earth declines to join the hegemony. We are open to friendly relations between equals, but we will not surrender our sovereignty." Krell's color shifted to a deep red. "Perhaps I was unclear. This is not a choice. All worlds join the hegemony eventually. Those that resist face consequences." "We understand the implications," Frank replied. "Nevertheless, our answer remains no." The assembly fell silent as Krell stood taller, looming over the human delegation. "You have technology beyond what our records indicated, but you are still primitive compared to the hegemony. We have conquered worlds far more advanced than Earth." Frank stood his ground. "Then you should recognize the warning signs of a difficult conquest. Earth has united against external threats before." "You have 48 of your hours to reconsider," Krell announced. "After that, the hegemony will take appropriate action to bring Earth into compliance." As the alien delegation departed, Frank gathered Earth's military and scientific leaders. "Get me Colonel Harris and Captain Morgan immediately," he ordered, "and contact the Mars Defense Station. It's time to activate Protocol Omega. Dr. Patel looked concerned. You don't think they'll actually attack? Frank's expression was grim. Lieutenant Wilson's team intercepted their real plans. They're not here to welcome us into the galactic community. They're here to take everything we have. The moment the hegemony delegation left Earth's atmosphere, military bases around the world sprang into action. Underground facilities that had remained hidden for decades suddenly opened as massive weapon systems emerged from beneath innocent-looking farmland, mountaintops, and ocean platforms. Commander John Rivera stood in the central command bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, watching as status reports flooded in from around the globe. Defense Grid Sectors 1 through 17 online, announced an operator. Orbital platforms activating and removing stealth shielding. John nodded. For 30 years, Earth had secretly built defenses while publicly denying their existence. The orbital defense network had been constructed in pieces, disguised as satellite launches, space station modules, and debris removal missions. Status of the civilian evacuation protocols? John asked. Major urban centers are beginning staged evacuations to the subsurface shelters, replied his aide. We should have 40% of the population in hardened positions within 12 hours. In her laboratory beneath MIT, Dr. Samantha Rice and her team worked frantically to finalize the adaptive shield technology. The system was designed to analyze enemy weapon signatures and reconfigure Earth's defenses to counter them. The simulations show 93% effectiveness against the energy weapons we detected on the scout ship, said her assistant, pulling up the data. Samantha frowned. Not good enough. We need at least 98% for population centers. Recalibrate the quantum field generators and run it again. Across the Atlantic, European and African command centers activated their portions of Earth's hidden defenses. In Asia, missile silos disguised as manufacturing plants prepared their countermeasures. Captain Alex Morgan's EDF-7 was joined by 11 other ships, previously kept secret from the public. They formed a defensive perimeter around Earth, their advanced stealth systems making them nearly invisible to conventional detection. All ships report ready, Captain, said Lieutenant Grace Powell. The fleet is in position. Alex studied the tactical display. Have all vessels maintain stealth protocols. We want the hegemony to be surprised by our real capabilities. On the far side of the moon, Chief Engineer Ryan Foster activated the massive particle accelerator that powered the quantum disruption field. This technology, adapted from theoretical physics breakthroughs made 15 years earlier, could create a bubble around Earth that would interfere with the hegemony's faster-than-light technology. Disruption field at 60% and climbing, Ryan reported to command. We'll be at full strength in 4 hours. Meanwhile, Dr. Olivia Patel worked with intelligence analysts to prepare psychological warfare strategies. They studied the limited communications with Victorians, looking for cultural weaknesses they could exploit. Their hierarchy seems rigid, she noted, and they place enormous value on their technological superiority. If we can demonstrate that we can match them, it might force them to reconsider. In Washington, D.C., Director Frank Daniels addressed a special joint session of Congress. For generations, we have prepared for this moment, he said solemnly. While building peaceful space programs publicly, we secretly developed defensive capabilities. We hoped never to need them, but we always knew this day might come. The congressional chamber was unnaturally quiet as he continued. The hegemony believes Earth is defenseless. They expect us to surrender without resistance. They are wrong. Around the world, military personnel said goodbye to their families as they reported for duty. Civilian volunteers staffed emergency services. Children were moved to underground schools and shelters. In orbit, the hegemony ships maintained their position, unaware of the activity below. Their sensors, focused on conventional military forces, missed the true extent of Earth's preparations. Lieutenant Kate Wilson's intelligence team intercepted and decoded another transmission from the hegemony fleet. They're calling for reinforcements, she reported. They suspect we might resist and want additional ships before they make their move. John Rivera reviewed the latest readiness reports with his staff. Then we need to be ready before those reinforcements arrive. Double the shifts on the shield generators. All defense grid operators at their stations. As the countdown clock showed 31 hours remaining in the hegemony's ultimatum, Earth continued its preparations. Beneath the surface of normality, the planet was transforming into a fortress. "They think we're primitive," Frank said as he reviewed the global defense readiness. "Let's show them how dangerously wrong they are." The attack came 17 hours before the ultimatum expired. The hegemony ships suddenly powered their weapons systems and launched fighters without warning. The first energy beams struck toward Earth's surface, aimed at what their scans identified as military installations. Commander John Rivera was reviewing defense plans when the alarms blared. "They're early," he said, rushing to the command center. "Status report. Hegemony vessels have broken orbit and are deploying attack formations," an officer reported. "They've launched approximately 200 fighter craft." John activated the Global Defense Network. "Bring the shield grid online now." Across Earth, the hidden defense platforms revealed themselves. Massive energy shields formed a patchwork above major cities as countermeasures activated. When the first hegemony energy beams struck the shields, they dissipated in spectacular flashes of light visible from the ground. Dr. Samantha Rice watched the sensor readings from her lab. "The adaptive shields are holding at 97% efficiency," she announced to the team. "The system is learning their weapon signatures and adjusting in real time." Not all areas were fully protected yet. Several beams broke through gaps in the shield coverage. Sydney's Harbour District took heavy damage as buildings collapsed under the alien assault. In Cairo, the eastern districts erupted in flames as energy weapons struck residential areas. Captain Alex Morgan watched from the bridge of the EDF-7 as Earth's defenses engage. "All ships, break stealth protocols and execute attack pattern Delta," he ordered. "Target their fighter launch bays first." Earth's hidden fleet suddenly appeared on the hegemony sensors, rising from concealed positions on the dark side of the moon and from camouflaged orbital hangars. The 12 Earth ships, though smaller than the main hegemony vessels, moved with surprising speed and coordination. The EDF-7 led the assault, its advanced rail guns firing projectiles at near-light speed that punctured the largest hegemony ship's outer hull. 2 other Earth vessels targeted the enemy's fighter base, preventing more small craft from joining the battle. In orbit, the space around Earth became a chaos of energy beams, missiles, and debris. The hegemony commanders, expecting an easy victory, found themselves in a real fight. On the ground, the quantum disruption field activated fully, creating a bubble around Earth that prevented the hegemony from using their fastest drives to escape or maneuver effectively. "They're trapped in normal space," Chief Engineer Ryan Foster confirmed. "Their faster-than-light systems are completely neutralized." Dr. Olivia Patel worked frantically to decode the hegemony battle communications. "They're confused and asking for instructions," she told John. "Their command structure seems to be breaking down under unexpected resistance." The hegemony's main battleship turned its primary weapon toward North America, charging what appeared to be a massive energy cannon. Before it could fire, 3 of Earth's ships concentrated their fire on the weapon emplacement. The resulting explosion tore through the alien vessel, leaving it listing in orbit. In Washington, Director Frank Daniels received reports from around the world. Despite the shields, 14 cities had suffered damage. Civilian casualties were in the thousands, with Sydney and Cairo hit hardest. "Activate all ground-based countermeasures," he ordered, "and get me a direct channel to their command ship." As Earth's hidden missile silos opened, launching hundreds of advanced interceptors, the tide of battle began to turn. The hegemony fighters, finding themselves targeted by both orbital and ground defenses, started to retreat toward their damaged motherships. Captain Morgan directed the EDF-7 in a daring attack run against the hegemony flagship. "Target their engine section," he ordered. Let's show them they can't just walk away from this fight. The EDF-7's main guns fired, striking the flagship's propulsion systems. The massive alien vessel shuddered, venting atmosphere and debris into space. After 3 hours of intense fighting, the remaining hegemony ships abruptly disengaged, limping toward the edge of the solar system. "They're retreating," John announced to the command center. A brief cheer went up before he continued. "But they'll be back, and in greater numbers." Lieutenant Kate Wilson's team intercepted the hegemony's transmissions as they withdrew. "They're sending detailed reports about our defenses," she reported, "and requesting a full battle fleet. They're not giving up." As Earth tended to its wounded and repaired its defenses, the leaders knew this was just the beginning. The hegemony had been surprised that they would return prepared for a real war. Lieutenant Kate Wilson stared at her computer screen, surrounded by a team of Earth's best hackers and code breakers. For 3 days since the hegemony's retreat, they had been working to crack the alien communication systems. Now, finally, they had broken through. "I'm in their network," she announced, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Their encryption was advanced but based on mathematical principles similar to ours. The underground facility beneath Geneva hummed with activity as analysts gathered around her station. Kate's team had managed to place a digital backdoor in the damaged systems of a hegemony fighter that had crashed in the Pacific Ocean. "What are you seeing?" asked her supervisor, General Eric Martinez. "It's enormous. Their network spans thousands of star systems," she replied, eyes wide. "But look at this. Reports of resistance movements, suppressed rebellions. Earth isn't the only world fighting them." Kate isolated a cluster of data packets that mentioned something called the Arcturian Alliance, a coalition of planets that had been resisting hegemony rule for decades. "We need to contact these Arcturians," General Martinez said immediately. "Get this information to Director Daniels." In Washington, Director Frank Daniels reviewed the discovery with his crisis team. "If we could establish communication with these other resistance forces, we might find allies." Ambassador Lisa Chen, Earth's most skilled diplomat, was brought into the project. "We'll need to send a tight beam transmission toward the coordinates mentioned in the hegemony files," she suggested. "But we'll have to be careful not to reveal our position to the hegemony fleet." Dr. Olivia Patel worked with Lisa to craft a message that would be understood by the Arcturians. They encoded it with mathematical formulas that would identify Earth as a technological civilization, while concealing specific details about Earth's defenses. 3 days later, they received a response, a burst transmission from a distant star system that contained technical specifications for a more secure communication channel. "They're cautious," Lisa noted, "but they're willing to talk." Meanwhile, Kate's team made another critical discovery. The hegemony's central database contained records of atrocities committed against resisting worlds, forced labor camps, resource stripping that left planets uninhabitable, and genetic experiments on subject populations. "We need to broadcast this throughout their network," Kate suggested. "Their subject worlds don't know the full truth." Director Daniels agreed. "Prepare a data package with this evidence. We'll transmit it through the hegemony's own communication relays." Earth's defensive preparations continued while Kate's team worked on their information warfare campaign. The quantum disruption field was expanded to cover the entire solar system, making it harder for hegemony ships to approach undetected. Captain Alex Morgan and the Earth Defense Fleet conducted regular patrols, strengthened by new weapons based on recovered hegemony technology. Dr. Samantha Reyes had reverse-engineered several key systems, improving Earth's defensive capabilities. 7 days after first contact with the Arcturians, Lisa Chen established a real-time communication link with their leadership. "We have fought the hegemony for 27 of your years," explained the Arcturian representative, a being with features like a cross between an insect and a mammal. "They control hundreds of worlds, but many are on the verge of rebellion. They need only a spark." Lisa proposed a bold plan. "We can provide that spark. We've accessed their communication network and gathered evidence of their true intentions and past crimes. The Arcturians agreed to coordinate their efforts. When the hegemony returns to your system, we will launch simultaneous strikes against their supply lines. Kate's team completed their information package, documenting hegemony atrocities with irrefutable evidence taken from the aliens' own records. They designed it to bypass security protocols and self-distribute throughout the network. It's ready, Kate told Director Daniels. Once we activate this, it will spread to every hegemony communication node within their empire. The main hegemony battle fleet emerged from hyperspace just beyond Jupiter's orbit. 27 massive warships, each many times larger than their initial attack force, formed a battle line that stretched across space. At their center was the dreadnought Eternal Dominion, commanded by Admiral Zorn himself. Earth's long-range sensors detected the fleet immediately. Commander John Rivera watched the tactical display with a grim expression. They'd brought enough firepower to glass the planet, his second-in-command observed quietly. But they won't get the chance, John replied. Alert all defense stations. Activate the quantum-phased missile platforms. Across the solar system, Earth's defenses prepared for the coming battle. The 12 ships of Earth's fleet took up defensive positions around the planet, joined by 50 smaller craft that had been completed in the weeks since the first attack. Admiral Zorn's holographic image appeared in command centers worldwide. The Chlorian admiral was tall even for his species, with skin that glowed a deep crimson. Humans of Earth, his translated voice boomed. Your resistance is unprecedented but futile. Surrender now, and some of your population will be spared. Director Frank Daniels responded from Washington. We've seen your records, Admiral. We know what happens to worlds that surrender to the hegemony. Earth will never kneel. The transmission cut off abruptly. Moments later, the hegemony fleet began advancing toward Earth. Captain Alex Morgan stood on the bridge of the EDF-7, watching the enemy approach. All ships, form up on Battle Plan Theta. Remember your training. Earth had one advantage the hegemony didn't expect: the quantum-phased missiles developed by Dr. Samantha Reyes. Based on technology reverse-engineered from the first hegemony attack, these weapons could briefly shift out of normal space, passing through standard energy shields before rematerializing inside enemy vessels. Missiles armed and tracking, reported Lieutenant Grace Powell. First salvo ready on your command. In orbit around Neptune, hidden sensor platforms detected a new energy signature. A fleet of unknown design appeared behind the hegemony forces. It's them, Lieutenant Kate Wilson confirmed from her monitoring station. The Arcturians kept their promise. The Arcturian ships, sleek and organic in design, immediately opened fire on the rear of the hegemony formation. Caught by surprise, several hegemony vessels turned to face this new threat, dividing their attention. Now, ordered Commander Rivera, launch all missiles while they're distracted. From hidden bases on Mars, Europa, and Earth's moon, hundreds of quantum-phased missiles streaked toward the hegemony fleet. The alien vessels activated their shields, but the missiles simply phased through them, detonating inside the ship's hulls. 3 hegemony cruisers erupted in spectacular explosions. A fourth spun out of control, its engines destroyed. But the remaining ships quickly adapted, activating secondary defensive systems that created distortion fields around their vessels. Second wave ineffective, reported the Missile Command Center. They're generating some kind of quantum disruption field of their own. Admiral Zorn pressed the attack, his remaining ships launching thousands of fighter craft toward Earth. The planet's defense grid lit up as it engaged the incoming swarm. Dr. Rice worked frantically in her lab, analyzing the new hegemony defenses. They're using a reverse-phased field, she determined, but it has a fluctuation pattern. If we time our attacks precisely. She sent new targeting parameters to the missile platforms. The third wave of missiles adjusted their approach, striking during microsecond vulnerabilities in the hegemony's defenses. 5 more enemy ships were crippled, but the Eternal Dominion continued its advance, shrugging off attacks. In the midst of the chaos, Captain Morgan made a fateful decision. "We're not going to win this through attrition," he told his crew. "We need to take out their command. I need volunteers for a boarding mission." A dozen crew members stepped forward immediately. Using a small stealth craft hidden in the EDF-7's launch bay, they plotted an approach to the Eternal Dominion through the debris field of battle. The space around Earth became a maelstrom of energy weapons, explosions, and destroyed ships. The Arcturians pressed their attack from behind, while Earth's forces held the line in front. Casualties mounted on all sides as the battle raged across the solar system. On Earth, civilians watched the battle through telescope feeds, the flashes of combat visible even to the naked eye as distant stars in the night sky. Everyone knew what was at stake, not just their lives, but their freedom and humanity's future among the stars. Captain Alex Morgan led his team through the dimly lit corridors of the Eternal Dominion. They encountered surprisingly little resistance as they made their way toward the command center. Most of the Xorian crew was focused on the battle raging outside. They never expected anyone to board them, Lieutenant Grace Powell whispered as they passed the massive engine rooms. "Their internal security is minimal." Using schematics derived from the smaller captured hegemony vessels, they navigated the labyrinthine ship until they reached the central command deck. Here, finally, they met serious opposition. 6 Xorian guards stood outside the main doors, armed with energy weapons. Non-lethal if possible. Alex reminded his team before they attacked. The brief firefight lasted less than a minute. Earth's soldiers, wearing armor developed by Dr. Reyes that partially absorbed energy weapons, overwhelmed the guards. 2 humans were injured, but none killed. When they burst onto the command deck, Admiral Zorn turned in surprise. The massive Xorian stood nearly 10 feet tall here in his natural environment, his 4 arms operating different control stations simultaneously. "Impossible," Zorn said, his translator making the word sound flat. "Surrender your fleet, Admiral," Alex demanded, training his weapon on the Xorian commander. Outside, the battle had reached its peak intensity. The Earth defense grid was holding, but several orbital platforms had been destroyed. The Arcturian fleet had lost nearly half its ships, but continued to press the attack. Earth's remaining vessels fought with desperate courage, using the debris fields as cover to launch hit-and-run attacks. Commander John Rivera received the encoded signal from Captain Morgan's team. "They've reached the command deck," he announced to Earth's leadership. On the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Zorn had not yet responded to Alex's demand for surrender. Other Xorian officers on the bridge watched the standoff with their alien expressions unreadable. "Your fleet is caught between our forces and the Arcturians," Alex continued. "You've lost 9 capital ships already. This ends now." "You think capturing me will end this war?" Zorn asked. "The hegemony has existed for 50,000 years. We do not surrender." "We're not asking you to end the hegemony," Alex replied, "just to leave Earth alone." At that moment, Lieutenant Kate Wilson broke into the hegemony's command communications network. On every hegemony ship, screens suddenly displayed images from dozens of worlds where rebellions had broken out following Earth's information warfare campaign. "Your empire is crumbling, Admiral," Kate's voice announced across the fleet. 17 core worlds have already declared independence. Zorn saw the images on his own command screens. For the first time, uncertainty crossed his alien features. "Admiral," one of his officers reported, "we've lost contact with the Homeworld Defense Network." This news seemed to affect Zorn deeply. He turned back to Alex, his skin color shifting to a pale blue. "Perhaps negotiations are in order," the Admiral said finally. Within the hour, Admiral Zorn sent the stand-down code to all hegemony vessels. The fighting gradually ceased as ship commanders confirmed the orders. Emergency medical teams from Earth, the Arcturian fleet, and even the hegemony worked together to rescue survivors from damaged vessels. 3 days later, representatives from 27 formerly subjugated worlds arrived at Earth for an unprecedented summit. The Grand Hall of the United Nations had been repaired following the first attack, and now hosted the most diverse gathering of species the planet had ever seen. Director Frank Daniels addressed the assembled delegates. The hegemony's fall gives us all an opportunity, not to create a new empire, but to build something better, a galactic confederation based on mutual respect and sovereignty. The proposal was met with widespread approval. Even some former hegemony worlds, freed from their central government, sent representatives. Admiral Zorn, now a prisoner of war, but treated with dignity, watched the proceedings with curiosity. For thousands of years, we believed domination was the only way to maintain order among the stars, he told Dr. Olivia Patel, who had been assigned as his liaison. Perhaps we were wrong. In the months that followed, Earth became known throughout the galaxy as the world that said no, the planet that had triggered the fall of an empire not through superior military might, but through courage, intelligence, and the power of truth. Captain Alex Morgan and Dr. Olivia Patel were appointed as Earth's first ambassadors to the new confederation, as they prepared to depart on their first diplomatic mission aboard the rebuilt EDF-7, now renamed Defiance. Alex looked back at the blue planet below.